Afterwards, everyone returns to the guild to celebrate the victory, and when Rio finally shows up, he has no clue why the place is so lively. But while the rest of the guild gets to party, the guild master is swamped with paperwork, since he still has to file reports on the Great Monsters outbreak and process payouts for the adventurers who helped handle it. On top of that, researchers from the royal capital are bound to come in sooner or later to collect data on the Great Monsters outbreak, so he will have to handle them too. Down at the party, Abel has just finished explaining what went down with the monsters outbreak while Rio was in the library when his friends arrive. Lynn has been wanting to ask Rio face to face for a while, so she asks him whether he can actually raise thick ice walls from a distance. Rio says yes, and to be precise, he can cast up to roughly 40 meters out. But it took a long time to get it, so it is not as easy as it looks. Even so, Lynn has never heard of anyone working magic at that kind of range, so she asks if it is an original spell, and if it is, what incantation Rio uses to pull it off. Rio says he would be happy to show her later, but as for the words, Rio basically makes them up on the spot, so she can use whatever she likes. Right then, Nils notes that most of the food is already gone, so if Rio does not hurry, he will end up with nothing to eat. Rio excuses himself to eat, but Lynn is still puzzled by what he meant about just going with the flow and incantations. Abel tells her that Rio only bothers with incantations because he thinks they sound awesome, but he can cast without saying anything at all, and that sounds even wilder to her than the ice walls. The next day, Nils, Ito, and Amon meet at the guild to look for work, but they are disappointed to find the job board completely empty. Right then, Rio happens to pass by and asks what the three of them are doing, since they would usually be out working by now. Unluckily, after the monster outbreak yesterday, the dungeon was shut for inspections, so they will not be able to go there for a bit. They were hoping to pick up a resource gathering job, but with all the items dropped during the monster outbreak, there is currently little demand for gathering. Regardless of their problems, they ask Rio what he is up to right now, so Rio explains that he is actually in the middle of searching for magic copper ore because he needs it to start practicing alchemy. Ito remembers hearing that magic copper ore is extremely expensive around here, and Rio confirms that this is correct, adding that the last shop he visited told him 50 gold pieces for a single copper piece, a huge price for a single unit. The cost does not matter much to Rio as he has money, and Rio also wants to provide some steady work for his friends, so he asks if they would be willing to gather magic copper ore for him. Rio adds that he will pay each of them 4 gold coins whether they find any or not, and if they do bring some back, he will buy it for 25 gold coins. All three are shocked since that is more money than they have ever earned in their lives, and Ito still asks if Rio is fine paying that much just to be sure. Rio explains that if they end up finding the copper, his total outlay is only 37 gold, which is far cheaper than the 50 gold he would spend in town, so the arrangement is good for him as well. Once they confirm that Rio is completely serious about the offer, the three of them hurry off to begin their search immediately. However, after they leave, Rio hears a sharp ruckus outside the building, so he heads over to take a look. In the side alley, Rio finds Dan arguing with a squad of knights who are basically trying to snatch a girl in broad daylight in front of everyone. The girl clearly does not want to go, so when they start driving her away, Dan steps in and shoves the nearest knight to break his grip and pull her free. She is free for the moment, but the bigger problem is that the knights still outnumber Dan 4-1 and they have swords, so there is no realistic way he can beat them. The group's leader moves to teach Dan a lesson for daring to defy a knight, but the instant he steps forward he stumbles, loses his balance and falls down hard to the street. Everyone nearby is shocked because there is plainly nothing near the knight's boots or on the ground to trip over. The knight refuses to swallow the humiliation of tripping over himself, so he points a finger and accuses Dan of pulling some trick on him. As Knight tries to stand back up with a frustrated grunt, he trips again and hits the ground a second time. Moments later, Phelps arrives, and the sight of these so-called knights turns him angry. At first, the knights try to intimidate them as on paper they outrank adventurers within the city, but their confidence is shaken when Phelps tells them that while he is an adventurer, he is also a noble. His full name is Phelps Heinlein, and the moment they hear he belongs to the Heinlein house, they realize they are finished. His father once commanded the Royal Knights, which means the Heinlein name carries real power to order. Phelps could likely have them dismissed on the spot if he chose to. Had Phelps been there while they tried to kidnap the girl, he probably would not have hesitated to end them, but right now what Phelps knows is that they were about to attack Dan, so he calls them a disgrace to knighthood and tells them to clear out before he changes his mind about letting them walk away. After the knights leave, Phelps looks up at Rio, having caught what he pulled a moment earlier. Phelps had already heard from Abel that Rio's magic was extraordinary, yet seeing it for himself still amazes him, since he has never watched anyone cast from that far away with that kind of precision. Of course, Phelps has no plan to tell anyone that Rio is the one who made those royal knights slip, since that would be a problem for Rio. However, Phelps truly appreciates the help because he feels personally responsible for letting such awful men become royal knights. That night, Rio is having lunch at the tavern when Abel happens to show up. It is rare to see him out without the rest of his group, so Rio instantly assumes Abel is headed to the red light district after this. Abel freaks out and tells Rio to stop talking before people overhear him. And with Rio's sharp deduction, he figures that if Abel does not want folks thinking he would visit the pleasure district, Abel must already have someone in mind. At first, Rio guesses Lynn, but Abel says he is wrong because Lynn already has a crush on Warren. With that settled, Rio concludes the person must be Rihaya, and Abel gets even more flustered trying to deny it. But that only seals Rio's speculation. Leaving Abel's crush to the side, Rio asks what he is actually doing out alone tonight, so Abel admits he is headed toward the pleasure quarter, just not for the reasons Rio expected. Since Rio is here, Abel admits he could seriously use his aid. One of the dungeon investigators dispatched to the Loon Dungeon was an old buddy of Abel, and the Crown assigned royal knights to guard him while he was in town. The problem is, those guards are the same knights Rio spotted earlier, and there have been repeated reports of them committing egregious crimes by hiding behind their shiny armor. Abel heard they were in the pleasure district tonight, and they are bound to cause problems sooner or later, so Abel wants to stop them before anyone gets harmed. On the way, Rio notices two adventurers talking, but he has met every single adventurer in town by now, and Rio doesn't recognize either of them. Abel says it isn't unusual for adventurers to come to Loon to explore the dungeon, but the dungeon is closed right now, so it does look suspicious, especially since the pair are dressed head to toe in black and slip away the instant they realize Rio and Abel are watching. A few minutes later, Rio and Abel deliberately cut down a dark alley, and within moments the shady adventurers jump to ambush. But Rio already saw it coming, so he drops ice onto their heads and knocks every one of them out cold. Honestly, that was far easier than Rio expected it to be, but they still don't know what those men were planning, so they will have to hand them over to the guards for interrogation. Elsewhere in the pleasure district, Phelps is walking alone when the knights are following behind him. Their leader is still burning with humiliation over Phelps getting in his way earlier, so he and the others plan to annihilate him. But just as they are about to draw their swords, they all realize they cannot move at all. Then the entire scene is a trap laid by Phelps. Because now that he knows how rotten this group of knights truly is, Phelps would be a failure of a noble if he let them continue as they are. So Phelps had Shenna tag them with paralytic needles, and with them stuck in place she calls on her fire magic, reducing their bodies to ash, leaving only their footprints. The next day, a delegation of researchers from the royal capital arrives in the town. Right as the guild master had foreseen, they promptly made trouble for everyone by acquiring the entire day's rations for their inquiry. Besides that, Clive is already insisting that Hugh unseal the dungeon and assign some adventurers as escorts while they conduct the survey. Hugh tells Clive he is out of line since no one knows the dungeon's current condition and it could be genuinely hazardous. But Clive counters that he has been granted absolute authority over the investigation, so Hugh is bound to do as Clive says. The advisor apologizes to Hugh for Clive's conduct and vows to replace the provisions taken from the town, which Hugh appreciates. However, Clive will not back down and reopen the dungeon to go in. In the end, Hugh relents and says he is willing to open the dungeon for Clive, but states that if anything goes wrong, neither Hugh nor the city of Loon will bear responsibility. Every consequence will land on Clive's shoulders. Clive starts to waver now that he understands he will be the one facing the fallout if something happens, but Clive cannot retreat after arguing this hard. Clive accepts Hugh's terms, although they still have to find adventurers to accompany the research team. After a short while, Rio is heading toward the cafeteria when a girl runs out and asks if he can show her the way to the Adventurers Guild. Rio was on his way to eat, but since she badly needed his help, he walked her over to the guild. The girl's name is Natalie, and she is here to deliver a letter requesting Abel's party to defend the investigation team inside the dungeon. Rio is taken aback to learn that a team is going down there when the dungeon is closed, but Abel is sure someone leaned on Hugh to force a reopening. The reason it was closed in the first place dates back decades, when a monster outbreak occurred and an A-rank party was sent to investigate but never returned. Even their leader S-rank practically vanished without a trace, and if whatever lurks below can erase an S-rank, the guild refused to gamble, so from then on it became policy to seal the dungeon whenever a monster outbreak occurred. Rio finds the tale fascinating, but his stomach is growling, so he says he needs to head out now. After Rio leaves, Lynn asks whether Natalie truly belongs to the Schwarzkopf family. famous for their peerless water magic. Natalie says yes, so Len asks if she has ever encountered magic that allows a mage to raise an ice wall from afar. Natalie replies that she is not even sure a technique like that exists, so Abel explains that unbelievable as it sounds, Rio can erect an ice wall at a range of about 40 meters, and on that note, he warns everyone present never to pick a fight with Rio under any circumstances. If they ever end up against him, they should surrender on the spot because there is no chance they could defeat him even if they all came at him together. Abel tells Natalie that if she needs assistance and cannot find any of them, Rio is the one she should go to. 3 days pass and Rio's friends finally return from the job, having secured 2 pieces of magic copper ore. So Rio hands over a total of 90 gold coins, and they are deeply grateful, as with that much money, they can take a break from work for a while. Meanwhile, in the depths of the dungeon, the investigation team has already reached the 7th floor, but oddly they have not encountered a single monster yet, so they press onward. Eventually they come upon a black square set into the wall, and none of them can identify it, having never seen anything like it before. But Clive is thrilled because it is a prime anomaly to study, so he orders the instruments set up at once so they can transmit readings to the surface. Once that is done, the analysis crew, including Natalie, starts combing through the data to pinpoint the anomaly. But the moment Clive's researchers push the monodensity gauge through the gate, every person there is instantly teleported away, and the surface team loses connection with the entire unit. So now what will happen next? Subscribe to our channel to find out what will happen next. Friends, before we wrap up, we've recently launched a membership program where you can enjoy perks like early access to videos and exclusive content just for members, and many more to enhance your interactions. If you're interested, consider joining our membership. To enjoy these benefits, check out the link in the description to join. So friends, if you enjoyed our recap video, please like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.